Not trusting Allah's perfect plan requires a deep understanding that life is not random, nor are our struggles meaningless. Every moment we experience, whether joyful or painful, is part of a divine design created by Allah with complete wisdom and knowledge. Human beings naturally want control over their future, their success, their relationships, and their outcomes. But true peace begins when we realize that our knowledge is limited while Allah's knowledge is infinite. What we see as delay may not actually be protection, and what we consider loss may be preparation for something far greater. Many times, people lose hope because they judge their lives based only on what is visible in the present moment. When doors close, opportunities disappear, or plans fail, it feels like everything is falling apart. Yet reliance on Allah teaches us that closed doors are not always rejection, sometimes they are redirection. Allah knows what lies ahead, the unseen consequences, the hidden dangers, and the not blessings we cannot yet comprehend. A believer understands that Allah never takes something away without wisdom, and He never withholds something except for a greater purpose. Tawakkul does not mean abandoning effort or becoming passive. It means striving with sincerity while placing the outcome entirely in Allah's hands. You work, you plan, you make effort, but your heart remains calm because you know success and failure are ultimately decided by Allah alone. When effort is combined with trust, not fear, begins to fade. Even uncertainty becomes easier to bear because the believer knows that whatever Allah chooses will always be better than what they could have chosen for themselves. There are moments in life when answers do not come quickly. You may pray repeatedly, asking Allah for relief, guidance, or change, yet the situation remains the same. During these times, Shaitan whispers doubts, making a person feel forgotten or unheard. However, reliance on Allah means believing that every dua is heard, every tear is counted, and every hardship is known by Him. The delay itself may be part of spiritual growth, teaching patience, humility, and dependence upon Allah rather than dependence on worldly means. When a person truly trusts Allah's plan, anxiety begins to transform into calm acceptance. Instead of constantly asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the heart begins to say, "Allah knows what I do not know." This shift in mindset changes how challenges are experienced. Trials number not longer feel like unbearable burdens, but become opportunities to grow closer to Allah. Faith becomes stronger because it is no longer tied to circumstances, but rooted in certainty that Allah's wisdom never fails. Reflecting on past experiences often reveals how Allah's plan was always working in our favor. Many people later realize that the job they did not get protected them from harm, the relationship that ended saved them from deeper pain, or the delay they hated prepared them for something not better. These realizations strengthen trust because they show that Allah's timing is never early and never late. Everything unfolds exactly when it is meant to. Trusting Allah also requires surrendering pride and accepting human limitation. People often struggle because they believe they must solve every problem alone. Tawakkul teaches that reliance on Allah is not weakness but strength. When a believer turns to Allah sincerely, seeking guidance and placing their affairs in His care, they are not supported by divine mercy. The heart finds relief because it no longer carries the weight of controlling destiny. A person who relies on Allah learns to remain grateful in ease and hopeful in hardship. Gratitude during blessings protects the heart from arrogance, while patience during trials protects it from despair. This balance allows faith to remain stable regardless of changing circumstances. Life will always contain uncertainty, but reliance on Allah gives stability that does not depend on, not worldly outcomes. Even when the path ahead is unclear, trusting Allah means continuing forward with hope. The believer understands that Allah's plan is built upon mercy, justice, and wisdom beyond human understanding. Every struggle carries hidden lessons. Every delay carries unseen preparation. And every moment is part of a journey guided by the one who knows the past, present, and future simultaneously. When trust becomes sincere, fear loses its power, and the heart rests with the certainty. Not that Allah is arranging everything exactly as it should be. Allah's power has no limits, and this truth is the foundation of a believer's hope in every situation. Human beings are bound by limitations, time, resources, knowledge, and physical ability, but Allah is free from all limitations. What seems impossible in human logic is effortless in the command of Allah. When He says be, it becomes reality instantly, without delay, without struggle, and without needing any means. This understanding not completely changes how a believer views their problems, because nothing is ever truly beyond repair when Allah's power is involved. Many people lose hope when they look at their circumstances. They see closed doors, broken dreams, financial struggles, health issues, or emotional pain, and they assume that change is no longer possible. But this thinking comes from focusing only on human effort and forgetting divine ability. Allah is the creator of both the problem and the solution. He controls not hearts, changes situations, opens locked doors, and creates ways where no way seems to exist. What is impossible for people is only a moment away from transformation when Allah wills it. The story of every human life contains moments where help arrived unexpectedly. A person may have been struggling for years, then suddenly relief came from a direction they never imagined. This is not coincidence. It is the manifestation of Allah's power. He is not restricted by time. He can delay something for, not wisdom, and then bring it instantly when the moment is right. Sometimes a situation remains unchanged for a long time, not because Allah is unable to change it, but because He is preparing something greater than what was originally desired. Believing in Allah's limitless power also strengthens patience during hardship. When a believer understands that Allah can change everything overnight, they do not despair even in the darkest moments. They realize that relief does not need years to arrive at. What can come in a single moment if Allah decides. A person may go to sleep in distress and wake up to unexpected ease. A heart broken by loss may suddenly find healing through a blessing that was never anticipated. This is the reality of divine power. One of the greatest mistakes people make is measuring their situation by human standards. They look at numbers, probabilities, and logical outcomes, forgetting that Allah is not bound by probability. A situation that appears impossible according to all. But calculations can still be the easiest matter for Allah. This is why believers are encouraged to never lose hope, no matter how severe the condition becomes. Despair is a sign of forgetting the greatness of Allah's ability. When a person truly believes in Allah's unlimited power, their prayers change. Dua is no longer just words, it becomes certainty. They ask Allah knowing that nothing is difficult for Him. Even if the answer seems delayed, their heart remains connected because they understand. Not that Allah's timing is perfect. Sometimes the delay itself is part of the blessing, preparing the person internally for what they are asking for or protecting them from something they cannot see. There are countless examples in life where situations changed in ways no one expected. A person with no hope of success suddenly finds opportunity. A sick person receives healing when doctors have given up. A financially struggling individual receives provision from unexpected sources. These events not remind us that Allah's power is not theoretical, it is active and present in every moment of existence. A believer who understands this never sees their problems as final. Instead, they see them as temporary conditions under the control of the one who can change anything instantly. Even the hardest situations become light in the heart because the believer knows that Allah does not need time, resources, or permission to bring relief. His command alone is enough to transform reality completely. Not regardless of how impossible it appears from a human perspective, patience during difficult times is one of the most powerful qualities a believer can develop because it transforms pain into growth and hardship into elevation. Life is never free from trials, and every person is tested in different ways, and through loss, some through delay, some through emotional struggle, and others through uncertainty about the future. What separates despair from faith is not the presence of difficulty, but how the heart responds to it. Patience does not mean simply waiting. It means waiting with trust, hope, and steady belief that Allah is aware of every detail and is managing everything with wisdom beyond human understanding. When hardship arrives, the natural human reaction is often frustration or confusion. A person may question why something is happening, why prayers seem unanswered, or why relief is delayed. These thoughts are normal, but patience teaches the believer to rise above immediate, not emotional reactions, and anchor the heart in faith. Instead of allowing pain to create hopelessness, patience redirects the heart toward reliance on Allah, reminding the believer that nothing happens without purpose. Every difficulty carries meaning, even if that meaning is not immediately visible. One of the hidden gifts of patience is that it strengthens a person internally. Without challenges, character remains untested and faith remains unshaped. But through trials, a believer develops not resilience, humility, and deeper awareness of Allah's presence. Just as gold is purified through fire, human hearts are refined through hardship. The process may feel uncomfortable, but it removes weaknesses such as arrogance, impatience, and overdependence on worldly means. In their place, stronger qualities emerge, such as gratitude, trust, and emotional stability. Patience also brings clarity over time. In moments of difficulty, emotions can cloud judgment, making situations appear worse than what they are. However, those who remain patient often discover later that what seemed like a setback was actually protection or preparation. Something that was deeply desired but not granted may later reveal itself as something harmful avoided. Something delayed may eventually arrive in a better form or at a better time. Patience allows a person to experience this wisdom gradually, instead of rushing into conclusions based on limited understanding. A believer practicing patience understands that not Allah's timing is never random, delays are not neglect, and silence is not abandonment. Instead, every moment is part of a divine structure that is unfolding perfectly. Sometimes Allah withholds something to bring a person closer to Him, teaching them to turn away from reliance on creation and rely fully on the Creator. At other times, hardship is a means of elevation in status, forgiveness of sins, or preparation for a greater blessing that requires a stronger foundation. During painful, not moments, patience becomes a form of worship in itself. Every moment of restraint, every effort to remain calm, every time a believer chooses trust over panic, it all carries reward. Even tears shed in patience are not wasted, they are acknowledged and recorded. The heart that remains patient in difficulty is never ignored by Allah, even if relief has not yet arrived. The unseen reward is often greater than the visible struggle. Another important aspect of patience is that it protects a person, not from destructive decisions. Without patience, people may rush into actions that worsen their situation, such as giving up too soon, making wrong choices, or losing faith completely. Patience acts as a shield, keeping the believer steady until clarity arrives. It prevents temporary emotions from shaping permanent outcomes. True patience is not passive resignation. It is active endurance combined with hope. A patient believer continues to make dua, continues to strive, continues to seek solutions, but without losing inner calm when results are delayed. This balance creates strength that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. It allows a person to function even in uncertainty while their heart remains anchored in faith. Over time, patience changes perception. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once felt like endless darkness begins to reveal signs of light. The heart learns that every phase of life passes, every difficulty ends, and every moment of struggle carries not hidden mercy within it. Through patience, a believer begins to see life not as a series of random events, but as a carefully designed journey shaped by divine wisdom that always leads toward what is better, even when it is not immediately understood. Making dua with complete certainty is one of the most powerful acts of worship, because it reflects the deepest form of dependence on Allah. Dua is not just a request, it is a conversation between a servant and their Creator, where the heart turns not away from all creation and directs itself fully toward the one who controls everything. Certainty in dua means believing without doubt that Allah hears every word, understands every feeling, and has the power to respond in the best possible way, even if the answer does not come in the expected form or timing. Many people make dua, but not everyone makes it with yaqeen, full conviction. Some pray while carrying hidden doubts, wondering if their words are reaching anywhere or if their situation will ever change. However, true certainty means removing all hesitation from the heart. It means standing in front of Allah with the belief that nothing is too difficult for Him, nothing is hidden from Him, and nothing is beyond His control. When dua is made with this level of trust, it transforms from a simple request into a powerful expression of faith. One of the most important aspects of making dua with certainty is understanding that Allah's response is never limited to a single form. People often expect immediate results or specific outcomes, but Allah responds in ways that are always wiser than what is asked for. Sometimes He grants exactly what is requested, sometimes He replaces it with something better, sometimes He delays it for protection, and sometimes He removes harm instead of giving what was asked. A believer with certainty understands that every response from Allah is a form of mercy, even when it does not match personal expectations. Certainty in dua also changes. Not how a person views delays. When there is no immediate change, doubt may begin to enter the heart, making a person feel as if their prayers are unnoticed. But a heart filled with certainty knows that delay is not denial. It understands that Allah listens at every moment, even when the response is not yet visible. Just as seeds take time before they grow into plants, du'as also have their own timing, and their fulfillment unfolds according to divine wisdom rather than human urgency.
When a person
Makes dua with certainty, their emotional state also changes. Anxiety reduces because the heart is no longer carrying the burden of trying to control outcomes. Instead of worrying about how problems will be solved, the believer focuses on the fact that Allah is already aware and already working in ways unseen. This creates inner peace even before the situation itself changes. The heart becomes calmer, not because the problem has disappeared, but because trust in Allah has become stronger than. Not fear. Another powerful effect of certain dua is consistency. When belief is strong, a person does not stop praying just because they do not see immediate results. Instead, they continue to call upon Allah with persistence and hope. This persistence itself is beloved to Allah because it shows dependence and humility. A person who keeps returning to Allah, regardless of circumstances, strengthens their relationship with Him in ways that go beyond the fulfillment of a single request. Certainty. God also removes desperation from dua. There is a difference between begging in hopelessness and asking in faith. A believer with yaqeen does not feel hopeless, they feel confident in Allah's mercy. Even while asking in difficulty, there is an inner assurance that the one being asked is more generous than any creation and more capable than any force in existence. This balance between humility and hope makes dua deeply powerful. Sometimes people give up on dua because they measure outcomes too. Not quickly, but certainty teaches that timing belongs to Allah alone. What seems delayed may actually be perfectly timed for maximum benefit. A door may remain closed for a period, not because it will never open, but because opening it earlier would not have been beneficial. Understanding this allows the heart to remain steady instead of disappointed. When dua is made with full certainty, it becomes a source of transformation for the believer even before the situation changes. It strengthens faith, not builds patience, removes fear, and deepens reliance on Allah. The act of asking itself becomes a form of worship that purifies the heart from dependence on anything other than the Creator. Over time, this certainty reshapes how a person lives, how they think, and how they respond to every challenge they face. Letting go of excessive worry is one of the most important steps toward inner peace, because worry often gives pain a place in the heart that it does not deserve. Human beings naturally try not to control outcomes, predict the future, and prepare for every possible situation. But this constant mental pressure often leads to anxiety rather than solutions. When a person carries too much worry, their mind becomes tired, their heart becomes restless, and their ability to trust Allah weakens. True peace begins when a person realizes that not everything is meant to be controlled, and not every outcome is meant to be predicted. Worry often comes from focusing too much on possibilities instead, not of realities. A person starts imagining worst-case scenarios that may never happen, and in doing so, they suffer emotionally over events that are still unknown. This habit creates unnecessary stress and weakens the heart. Islam teaches that while effort is required, outcomes are in the hands of Allah. A believer is encouraged to prepare, plan, and act, but not to carry the burden of results that only Allah controls. When this understanding settles in the heart, worry begins to lose its grip. 1. Part of the main reasons people struggle with worry is because they feel responsible for everything in their lives. They believe that if they do not constantly think about their problems, something will go wrong. However, this belief creates exhaustion. Life is not managed by human anxiety, it is managed by divine decree. Allah is aware of every detail, from the smallest concern to the largest difficulty. Nothing is forgotten, nothing is ignored, and nothing is left without purpose. When a person Not understands this. They realize that their constant worry does not change outcomes, but trust in Allah brings calmness even before outcomes are revealed. Letting go of worry does not mean ignoring responsibilities. It means fulfilling responsibilities with effort and then releasing the emotional burden of results. A person studies, works, plans, and tries their best, but after that, they hand over the outcome to Allah. This separation between effort and outcome is what brings balance to life. Not without it, the mind becomes trapped in endless cycles of overthinking, where even after doing everything possible, the heart remains unsettled. Worry also weakens gratitude. When the mind is always focused on what could go wrong, it becomes difficult to appreciate what is already going right. A person may have blessings in their life, but worry prevents them from seeing those blessings clearly. Instead of peace, they experience dissatisfaction. Letting go of excessive worry allows the heart to not shift its attention from fear to gratitude, from uncertainty to appreciation, and from tension to contentment. Another hidden danger of worry is that it reduces trust in Allah over time. When a person constantly tries to mentally control every outcome, they slowly begin to rely more on their own thinking than on divine wisdom. This creates inner conflict because human knowledge is limited, but Allah's knowledge is complete. Releasing worry is not just emotional relief, it is also a return to not correct spiritual alignment, where a person acknowledges that Allah's plan is more reliable than their own assumptions. When worry is replaced with trust, the heart experiences a different kind of strength. Problems may still exist, challenges may still come, but the emotional weight becomes lighter. The believer learns to say inwardly that whatever Allah decides will always carry wisdom, even if it is not immediately understood. This mindset does not remove difficulties, but it removes fear, not from difficulties. The situation may remain the same, but the heart changes completely. Letting go of worry also improves decision making. A worried mind is often clouded, reacting based on fear rather than clarity. But a calm heart is more focused, more thoughtful, and more capable of making balanced choices. When a person stops overthinking every possible outcome, they become more present in their actions and more confident in their steps forward. Over time, releasing excessive worry becomes a not habit that transforms life experience. Sleep becomes more peaceful, thoughts become less chaotic, and the heart becomes more stable. Instead of living in imagined fears, a person begins to live in reality while trusting that Allah is already managing what is unseen. The heart gradually learns that peace does not come from controlling everything, but from trusting the one who already controls everything completely. When a person truly understands that Allah changes conditions when hearts change, not their entire perception of life begins to transform. External circumstances are not always the first thing that shifts often. The real change begins within the heart. A person may be waiting for their situation to improve, expecting financial relief, emotional healing, or resolution of long-standing problems. But Allah sometimes begins the transformation from within before it becomes visible outside. The inner state of a person plays a powerful role in how their life unfolds, because Allah not responds not only to words but also to sincerity, intention, and the direction of the heart. When the heart turns toward Allah with honesty, humility, and repentance, something remarkable begins to happen. A person who once felt distant may suddenly feel closer to their Creator. A heart that was once distracted may begin to soften. This internal shift becomes the foundation for external change. Many people focus only on changing their circumstances, but they forget that Allah often begins by not changing the person experiencing the circumstances. When the heart becomes aligned with faith, obedience, and dependence on Allah, doors that seem closed begin to open in ways that were not expected. A change in the heart includes returning to Allah sincerely, seeking forgiveness, and letting go of habits or attitudes that weaken faith. Sometimes a person is struggling not because Allah is not responding, but because their heart is disconnected from the spiritual state that brings barakah. Not when that connection is restored, even gradually, life begins to shift. The same problems may not disappear instantly, but the way a person experiences those problems becomes different. They gain strength, patience, and clarity that were not present before. Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. This principle highlights that transformation is a two-way process. Internal change leads to external change. A heart filled with arrogance Not impatience or negligence creates distance from blessings, while a heart filled with sincerity, gratitude, and trust invites mercy. When a person starts correcting their relationship with Allah, they begin to see subtle changes in their life. Solutions appear from unexpected places. Difficulties become more manageable, and confusion starts turning into clarity. One of the most powerful effects of a changing heart is the way it alters perception. A situation that once felt unbearable may begin to not feel lighter, not because the situation itself has changed, but because the heart has become stronger. A person who once felt hopeless may begin to feel hopeful again, simply because their connection with Allah has deepened. This internal transformation is often the beginning of external relief, even if the outward signs are not immediately visible. A changed heart also brings sincerity into actions. When a person starts doing things for the sake of Allah rather than for recognition or personal, not gain alone, their life becomes more meaningful. Their efforts carry more barakah, and even small actions begin to have greater impact. This sincerity becomes a magnet for divine help because Allah supports those who turn toward Him with genuine intention. Sometimes people wait for life to change before they change themselves, but divine wisdom often works in the opposite way. Change within the heart is what invites change in life. When a person becomes more patient, more grateful, not obedient, and more conscious of Allah, their surroundings begin to reflect that transformation. Even relationships, opportunities, and challenges begin to shift in ways that align with their new spiritual state. A heart that returns to Allah does not remain the same because connection with the Creator naturally reshapes identity. The more a person turns toward Allah, the more their fears decrease and their trust increases. This shift creates resilience, allowing them to face difficulties, not without breaking internally. Over time, they realized that the greatest transformation was not only in their situation, but within themselves. And that internal transformation became the key that unlocked every external change that followed.